and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I'm Hira Mustafa and these are the headlines. The U.S. Senate has acquitted former President Donald Trump in his second impeachment trial for his role in the January 6 Capitol riots. The Senate voted 57 to 43, falling 10 votes short of the two-thirds majority required to convict Trump on the charge of incitement of insurrection. In a statement following his acquittal, Trump denounced the trial as the greatest witch hunt in history. India's opposition has slammed the federal government for intentionally ignoring prior knowledge of the Pulwama attack. In a tweet, Congress questioned Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government over not disclosing the reality about the incident. 40 Indian soldiers were killed in an attack in occupied Jammu and Kashmir's Pulwama district on this day in 2019. Thousands of anti-coup protesters have taken to the streets in Myanmar's major cities for a 9th straight day. The military has reinstated a law requiring people to report overnight visitors to their homes to local authorities as police hunt protesters. Earlier, the army suspended privacy laws limiting detention and surveillance. Turkey says it has concluded the second phase of Operation Claw Eagle against the PKK terrorists in northern Iraq. Defense Minister Hulusi Akar said 48 terrorists were neutralized, including 2 senior members during the operation. Akar said the Turkish forces returned home safely after clearing the region of the terror group. China has slammed the U.S. statement accusing Beijing of lack of transparency in sharing the WHO information regarding origins of the coronavirus. A spokesperson for the Chinese embassy in Washington said U.S. criticism damaged multilateralism cooperation and the WHO. The coronavirus has so far claimed nearly 2.4 million lives and infected over 108.5 million people. In Pakistan, over 1,400 contracted the virus and 31 more died overnight, raising the death toll over 12,300. And in tennis, Serena Williams and Naomi Osaka have stormed into the quarterfinals of the Australian Open. The 23rd Grand Slam winner Williams defeated Belarusian Arina Sabalenka 6-4, 2-6, 6-4. Earlier, former world number 1 Naomi Osaka beat Gabriel Muguruza 4-6, 6-4, 7-5. Well, these were the headlines. News in detail coming after the short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now the news in detail. The U.S. Senate has acquitted former President Donald Trump in his second impeachment trial over the Capitol riots. The violence on January 6 left 5 people dead, including a police officer. This report has more. Barely a month since the deadly Washington, D.C. Capitol riots stunned the world, the U.S. Senate convened for a rare weekend session to deliver its verdict on the trial to impeach former President Donald Trump for incitement of insurrection. The 100-member chamber voted 57 to 43, falling 10 votes short of the two-thirds majority required to convict Trump. In a statement following his acquittal, Trump denounced the trial as the greatest witch hunt in history. Trump's lawyers said they were extremely gratified over the outcome.
Thank you all for coming. Obviously, this was a difficult period of time for our country. And myself, Mr. Van der Veen, and the other members of the team are extraordinarily gratified that the United States Senate decided, as they did, to protect our constitutional way of life and not go down the road of endless impeachments.
Reacting to acquittal of Trump, President Joe Biden says democracy is fragile and every American has a duty to defend the truth. Meanwhile, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi slammed Republican senators for voting to acquit Trump.
Oh, these cowardly senators who couldn't face up to what the president did and what was at stake for our country are now going to have a chance to give a little slap on the wrist. We censure people for using stationery for the wrong purpose. We don't censure people for inciting insurrection that kills people in the Capitol.
Trump is the first U.S. president in history to be impeached twice and the first to face a trial after leaving office. If he had been convicted, the Senate could have voted to bar him from running for office again. India's opposition has slammed the federal government for intentionally ignoring prior knowledge of the Pulwama attack. 40 Indian soldiers were killed in an attack in occupied Jammu and Kashmir's Pulwama district on this day in 2019. On the second anniversary of the Pulwama attack, Indian opposition party Congress has questioned Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government over not disclosing the reality about the incident. Earlier this year, leaked WhatsApp chat of Indian television host Arnab Goswami revealed New Delhi knew about the attack beforehand. New Delhi was quick to blame Islamabad right after the attack without any proof, despite Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan assured full cooperation in the probe. In the days following the attack, Pakistan cooperated in every way to investigate the violence. Last year, Islamabad submitted a dossier to the United Nations with proofs showing how the attack was a false flag operation. Pakistan has already warned the world regarding India's more false flag operations. Islamabad said the Indian government will use such operations as a pretext to attack Pakistan and to justify its oppression of Kashmiris. In India, police have arrested an activist in connection with a toolkit to support farmers chaired by Greta Thunberg. Earlier, police also filed a case on charges of criminal conspiracy and sedition over the creators of the toolkit chaired by the Swedish climate activist. Meanwhile, the opposition compared the Modi government with the East India Company. It said the ruling party was crushing the poor and empowering big corporations, while the working president of Telangana Congress is on a 10-day foot march that will culminate on February 16th. Talking to the media, Revant Reddy said the new laws harm farmers and the march supports their protest. In another development, farmer unions are set to intensify their agitation with 7 grand meets across 3 states from today. Thousands of anti-coup protesters have taken to the streets in Myanmar's major cities for a 9th straight day. A convoy of thousands on motorbikes and cars drove through the capital, Naypyidaw. Residents banded together to patrol streets in Yangon and second city Mandalay. Meanwhile, the military has reinstated a law requiring people to report their overnight visitors to local authorities as police hunt protesters. The new rulers have suspended laws constraining security forces from detaining suspects or searching private property without court approval. They have also ordered the arrest of well-known backers of mass protests. According to a monitoring group, more than 384 people have been arrested since the February 1st coup. China has slammed the U.S. statement accusing Beijing of lack of transparency in sharing the WHO information regarding origins of COVID-19. Earlier, U.S. National Security Advisor expressed concerns about the way China communicated the findings of the WHO's team. In a statement, the Chinese embassy in Washington said U.S. criticism damaged multilateral cooperation and the WHO. It said the U.S. should not be pointing fingers at China and others who supported the health organization during the pandemic. It added Washington should hold itself to the highest standards instead of taking aim at other countries. Meanwhile, members of the WHO team also refuted Washington's allegations. Peter Daszak said he found trust and openness with Chinese counterparts. The coronavirus has so far claimed nearly 2.4 million lives and infected over 108.5 million people. More about the pandemic in this report. As governments across the world scramble to iron out hurdles in their vaccine drives, people are running out of patience. In Germany, protesters took to the streets in Berlin to protest coronavirus restrictions. 8 protesters were arrested in Cyprus after anti-COVID restrictions crowds clashed with the police in Nicosia. In Canada's British Columbia, hundreds gathered to oppose the curbs, calling them unconstitutional. Meanwhile, the virus continues to ravage the Americans, with over 484,000 dead in the U.S. to date. In South America, Mexico is going through its worst times, with over 1,200 deaths in the past 24 hours. Brazil is still among the countries with the highest fatality rate, reporting over 1,000 more deaths and more than 44,000 cases overnight. Peru's health minister, Pilar Mazzatti, has stepped down over inoculating the president before the vaccine became widely available in the country. In Pakistan, 58 more people have lost their lives to COVID-19, raising the death toll to 12,307. The health ministry says 1,404 people tested positive for the virus overnight. The ministry said the total number of cases detected in Pakistan has crossed 563,000. Over 525,000 people have recovered from coronavirus. The number of active COVID-19 cases in the country stands at 25,635. The ministry says that over 2,000 patients of COVID-19 are admitted across the country. Turkey says it has concluded the second phase of Operation Claw Eagle against the PKK terrorists in northern Iraq. Ankara launched the operation as an act of self-defense to prevent the terror group from re-establishing positions. Speaking in Sirnak province, Defense Minister Hulusi Akar said 48 militants were neutralized during the operation. He said these included 2 senior members. Akar said 2 terrorists were captured and the region was mostly cleared of the presence of the group. He added that Turkish forces returned home safely after concluding the critical operation. In Israel, thousands took to the streets of Jerusalem in protest against Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Demonstrations over Netanyahu's indictment and handling of the COVID-19 outbreak have entered their 34th week. The protesters holding banners gathered outside Netanyahu's residence in West Jerusalem, calling for his resignation. With just a month left in the elections, Netanyahu is facing severe public anger and is also undergoing a trial in court. The embattled Israeli Prime Minister faces charges of bribery, fraud, and breach of trust. In Thailand, pro-democracy activists clashed with police after draping Bangkok's democracy monument in red cloth. They say the red cloth and the monument represented the blood of fighters for democracy. Protesters threw paint at police and several small bangs were heard during a standoff near a city shrine. Police said over 20 officers were injured in the clashes and 8 people were detained for questioning. The demonstration was in reaction to this week's arrest of 4 protest figures under charges of insulting the monarchy. The student movement emerged last year and smashed long-held taboos by openly criticizing the king. Kosovars are heading to the polls today to choose new members of its 120-seat parliament. An anti-establishment party is expected to take the lead in parliamentary elections. The election is the 6th parliamentary poll for Kosovo since 2008, when it declared independence from Serbia. It comes after the Constitutional Court ruled the parliamentary vote that saw Abdullah Hoti installed as prime minister was invalid. The government, which was elected by 61 deputies in parliament, fell after the decision of the court. Last month, acting President Vajosa Usmani dissolved parliament and announced 14th of February as election day. And now it's time to take a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. More than 100 people have been injured after a major 7.3 magnitude earthquake jolted northeastern Japan. The country's meteorological agency says the quake struck off the Fukushima prefecture at a depth of 60 kilometers. The agency said the quake was an aftershock of the devastating quake that struck the same area in 2011. The quake triggered power outages, halting trains and causing a landslide. The quake also shook buildings in the Japanese capital, Tokyo, hundreds of kilometers away. Aftershocks reaching 4.7 magnitude continued for hours following the tremor. The Met Agency has warned of aftershocks for several days. Earthquakes are common in Japan, which accounts for about 20% of the world's quakes of magnitude 6 or greater. In Italy, 2 people have died after a car pileup on a motorway in the northern part of the country. Authorities said 10 others were injured in the car crash. They said the accident involved about 25 cars and occurred due to ice on the road. A cold weather snap is sweeping across Italy, with temperatures in many parts of the country expected to drop below zero. In the Netherlands, sub-zero temperatures have frozen many water bodies across the country. Citizens were quick to capitalize on the situation and went skating on the icy surface. More in this report. With most places closed across the country due to a lockdown, citizens have found themselves at a loss for entertainment. But thanks to the recent drop in temperatures, frozen lakes and ponds have provided an interesting opportunity to have fun. Locals are now taking full advantage of nature's skating rinks.
This is the perfect reason to go out and have a little fun with the museums and everything being closed. So this is perfect what you can do besides walking, because I think everybody saw the whole of Amsterdam with walking.
Members of a local skating club had been out to drill a small hole in the ice to measure its thickness. They have made sure locals could venture into the center of the pond safely.
Yesterday we had almost 7 centimeters of ice. That was on Wednesday afternoon when children were no longer in school. There was also a little snow that covered the ice, so we opened up the pond, which did undermine the ice, but there were a lot of children who had a great time.
Queues have formed around repair shops as locals prepared for a weekend skating in the center of Amsterdam. They say everyone in the country loves to skate, so the cold weather is no obstacle to their high spirits. A citizen in Germany has created Playmobil processions to get around the cancellations of carnivals amidst the pandemic. Details in the following report. For many in Germany, Carnival is a serious matter, especially the famous Rosenmontag parade in Cologne, where decorated floats and people in costume walk through the city, throwing sweets to the crowds. However, the carnival was cancelled this year due to the pandemic, and the city had to find some other way for the show to go on. Subsequently, the carnival organizers called for people to recreate the parade using toy figures. This inspired the Goosberg family to recreate the Rosenmontag parade in a very artistic and detailed manner using their Playmobil.
Decisive for the idea was actually the Bonn Carnival Festival Committee, which, due to the cancellation Rose Monday Parade or the cancelled Carnival in general, asked for people to recreate it with toy figures. Yes, that was actually the initial spark for the idea, and then I really got into it, so to speak, and first grabbed my children's Playmobil, and then we started the procession, and then it got bigger and bigger.
The thoughtful solution by Carnival Organizing Committee has provided the Germans an opportunity to enjoy their cultural activities amid coronavirus lockdown. Now it's time to have a look at the weather update across the globe. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at indus.news.